Singer-songwriter Marc-Alan Barnette was born into a musical family in Birmingham, Alabama. In 1998, he left Birmingham and moved to Nashville, where he scored a cut with Shelby Lynne his very first night in town. Marc has had several cuts since then and continues to write songs and perform. Just last night at the Commodore Grill in Nashville, Marc released his latest album titled The Last Damn CD I'll Ever Do, Part 1. Welcome, Marc-Alan Barnette.
All right. Hey, man. Hey, Tim. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing real well. Thank you so much.
So we'll get to your childhood and all that in Birmingham, but you
Sure.
got a cut the very first night you were in Nashville. How does that happen?
Well, I moved to Nashville after going through my whole life in Birmingham, and I kind of had made multiple trips up. And I had made a trip up and recorded a full blown, wasn't really a demo, it was a full record. And I'd recorded 10 songs. That was going to be my take, that we first moved to town. And the first night in town, I was at a place called Douglas Corner. I was the first to be there. I was the first to sign up, and yet I played very last because the featured guest brought 17 of her friends, and they all played before me. So I went on last. 3 people left in the bar, and a guy came up and he said, "Man, I like some of your funny stuff. Have you got a tape?" I did. I gave it to him. And a few months later, I run into him again, and he said, "Man, they're trying to find you at Tree Publishing because they love you, but there was no phone number on the tape."
Oh,
And so that guy was not in the music business. His name was Paul, but he had a roommate who was working over at Tree in the basement of it, and the song he was playing the song for different people, and it worked its way up to the vice president's office. And there was a producer named Billy Sherrill. Do you know Billy's name?
Sure.
Billy Sherrill discovered George Jones and Timmy Wynette, and he was walking by the office, going to the bathroom, and he heard the song playing on the stereo, and he stuck his head. He said, "Who is that?" We said, "We don't know. We've got this new guy, but we don't know who he is. We can't find his number." And so they had already kind of gotten the idea to cut that song. So the whole hook about hook, crook, it all happened. It ended up on a Willie Nelson Christopherson television movie called Another Pair of Aces, and Willie two steps to the song called "That's Where It Hurts" with Shelby Lynne. And so my dad was the biggest Willie Nelson fan in the world. He got to see Willie Nelson two step to his song, and so it was just that's the way all of this works. Somebody knows somebody that knows somebody knows somebody that it ends up, that's how the music business works. I had written those songs in Alabama. I had recorded them here in Nashville. And then by the time I moved to Nashville, kind of hit the ground running, 1988. April Fool's Day, 1988.
Oh, okay. Tell us, when did you start playing and singing?
I started when I was 14 years old. When I looked like this.
Okay.
I started in 1974 with some guys from high school and doing bands. And when I was about 16, we started actually writing songs. You look back now and you go, "Oh God, that was hard." And I got into it. I was always kind of an original entertainer. Right. And we started writing songs. And as the bands that I was in became more and more professional, the songs got a little bit better. Still, I look back on them now and I think, I hope that's not seen anymore or heard anymore.
Yeah.
Because it was okay for the time.
Right.
But when you move into a town of songwriters and you're around such great musicians and great people, craftsmen, then you realize you got to really up the level of your game. And that's what I've been lucky to do.
Well, all right. So you get this cut basically the first day you're there.
Yep.
But I'm assumed everything wasn't magical when you did get here. And
no.
Offers coming left and right and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it's always, there's a lot of start and stops, particularly when you're dealing the higher level of the industry. There are more people involved. It's one of the misconceptions about Nashville. People think, "Oh, I'm going to get seen and sign a deal." No, you're not. You're going to get seen to be seen by somebody else who'll see you and talk about it. And that's kind of how it goes. And even the people, it's kind of funny. I've been lucky enough to write with about 50 writers that have #1 songs or top 10s or Hall of Famers, and they all have the exact same thing. God, we got the song cut and forgot about it for a couple of years before it comes out, and then it becomes a giant greatest hit.
We'll jump forward to today's Nashville.
Yeah.
Do you have to be present to win?
All right, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I have a different phrase. I think you must have a presence to win.
Okay.
All right. I know many people. I've known many people. They're songwriters, some artists, because what a record company is really interested in are sales. They're interested in clicks. They really want artists out there touring and performing and building fan base.
Yeah.
And so you don't do that in Nashville. You need to be in Nashville to write with people to get your in the town reputation built up, and then you kind of cross promoting. I worked with an artist named Frankie Ballard. And Frankie was from Michigan, from Grand Rapids, Michigan. He would come down here once a month. He would be playing at various places up in Michigan. And he would be coming down. He would leave a gig at Saturday night, about 1 o'clock, or Sunday morning, about 1 o'clock in the morning, drive down to Nashville. He would get in about 8 o'clock in the morning here. He would sleep for a little while, we'd take Sunday off. Monday, we'd write a song in the morning. Monday afternoon, we'd write a song that afternoon. He'd go play somewhere Monday night. Tuesday, we did the same thing. Wednesday, he would go back to Michigan and continue to play. And he really was very focused on doing both of that. And he did not move to Nashville until he had his record deal. I view Nashville like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior years. It's like freshman year in Nashville. And each one lasts about 3 years. So that first year, the first freshman year, and you're just kind of learning what not to do. And most people have to go other places to play to make money. As they get those contacts in town, those contacts want them there because they want them riding around. They want them riding with different people. They want to take them to the songwriter festivals. They want to control them a little bit more as that develops. And so it's a tightrope. Today with the internet, you don't physically have to be here as much because they can do Zoom songwriting. They can do a lot of it. But they do want people out there on the road. It's been fairly impractical if you're having to spend all your time just on one thing. I guess the short answer is that you got to be around at a certain time to work with the people that are going to bring you to the party.
Yeah.
But up until then, your job is to do as much as you can do every way you can.
Right. So you mentioned the freshman year or years. And the mistakes that everybody makes. What can you tell people what the mistakes are?
All right, well, everybody starts out by they're really writing the same song that's out there. They sit down with me because I teach this stuff and I work in. And the first thing they'll go, I bet you've never heard this. And then 9 times out of 10, it's something that was a hit before they were born. And then, and they kind of, they do, the girls do ACSS, Angry Chick Singer Syndrome. They all got the same. It's like the shower scene of Psycho, and they go through all that. You're trying to go into a business. You're trying to get people into what you're doing. And so if you do all this angry stuff, sometimes it works. You got Miranda Lambert. She does, has done it fairly well. But when you get everybody else doing the exact same thing, it loses its impact. Yeah. And so you got the guys that do DDSS, Depressed Dude Singer Syndrome. You got rap country. And they all kind of fall into sounding exactly alike. And so the first thing that people do today, particularly with the internet, they are so consumed with getting things out there, they're not taking the time to work and see if you've got something worth getting out there. And so, getting ahead of yourself, getting in your own way is the number one thing that you have a problem with. Nashville is a 100% co-writing town. And everybody that comes in, I know how to write my songs. Wait till they get a load of me. And that the inexperience is what makes it like, okay, yeah, we've heard it. You got to have, sometimes if you're a younger artist, you got to write with some older people who've got life experience. Yeah. I hear these 14 and 15-year-old girls singing about, I got to get back on the whiskey because my heart's been broken, and I'm like, come on, guys. So I think it's just a combination of things. The first 3 years are really learning what not to do. You see and hear the same songs, the same people. Everybody looks the same. They dress the same, and you've got to carve out your own niche. Is what you got to do.
After being at like thousands of songwriters' nights in Nashville, there are certain things that just drive you nuts, and the ballad-centric songwriting.
Yeah.
I've been at the Commodore near the end of the night where Debbie Champion is basically begging somebody to play an up-tempo song.
Yeah. They play you got about 25 to 30 writers on on pretty much any main show. And the first person is going to play a ballad, second is going to play a ballad, third is going to play a ballad. Each one's going to get 3 songs. So start multiplying 3 songs between 25 and 30 people, and 75% of those songs are ballads, slow. They all go too long. You know, you don't have 4.5, 5 minutes anymore on these songs. You know, you need to be able to do what you do and present something that's not exactly like everybody else. It's difficult.
All right. Another thing that irritates me is taking 5 minutes to explain a 3-minute song.
Amen. Got a 10-minute intro for a 5-minute song. That's exactly right. Yeah. If your song doesn't explain it, you're not writing hard enough.
You're right. And, you know, you can explain what influenced the song, but if you're telling what the song's about, then why listen to the song?
When you get to a point, and fortunately, I guess I'm like this, that I get to be the feature, you know, and when people have had cuts or have had hits or whatever, they're expected to tell a little bit about the song. The reason people are coming to see them is part because of the stories. When you're brand new in town, you ain't got any stories yet. And you've got to be, you almost, I tell everybody that I work with, look, you've really got between 4 and 5 minutes for your entire presentation on any song. So if you've got a story, if you got a setup, you better make sure it is a small one, and you better be just as precise on the things that you say as well as the song, because you have to get it on. We have a term. I have a term called glow songs. All right, glow songs are when you're looking out over an audience, and one by one you see the phones come out, and the glow in the face of the people in the audience, because they're completely tuned out of what's on stage. If they're holding a phone up, they're videoing you. All right, that's good. But if it's down, they're checking emails or texts or checking something else, because they don't care what you're doing. They want you off the stage so they can get on the stage. And this is what Nashville, you got a very short attention span. In life, everybody's got a very short attention span. They got a ton of stuff going on. So don't bore us. Get to the chorus.
Absolutely.
We are in the TikTok, Instagram, Facebook generation. And they are so consumed with themselves. It's the temple of narcissism. And their songs are very inwardly focused. But our songs are not about us. They're about the connection and the relationships you build with the people who listen to your song. Everybody wants to hear themselves in those songs. We're really looking for 2 reactions. Number one is, oh my God, that's my life. Or, oh my God, that's my life, and I never thought about it like that. And so if you are so self-absorbed, you're not putting that out where it can be relatable to other people, they'll tune you out in a second.
When I left Nashville 6 years ago now, I asked a few songwriters what were publishers looking for then, and I think they said songs that were 2.5 minutes, two verses, and if it's 2.5 minutes, you don't have time for a long intro, solos. What are they looking for now?
You want the truth, or you want the national thing? They're looking for 18 to 22-year-old artists, and because we're not in the era of the song anymore. We're in the era of celebrity, and they're looking for somebody who can fill up a social network. They're looking for people who have a lot of inertia going on, and they're looking for someone who they have a reputation with. All right, for instance, imagine if back in the Garth Brooks days, all right, and Garth Brooks had done a lot of demos for some really big time writers, you know, Tony Arata, The Dance. He had done all of these major, and they kept hiring him over and over again. And so when he started doing those songs with them, that was their seal of approval on him. And that helped him inside the town. You start to thinking, oh, you know, Tony Arata, well, okay, I'll give you a listen. That's still today. They want somebody who's their friend that they hang around with to put the seal of approval on them. So they're looking for somebody that can motivate people, can get a crowd, get a social network following, can get a lot of things engineered, and can be very socially savvy, but also is connected to people that they know. I moved in '88, and I got that cut very quickly. And a very good friend of mine was Amy Curlin, who created the Bluebird. And she told me at that time, we went to lunch one day, and she said, you know, you had a pretty hot ride so far, right? And I said, Yeah, because I out of Birmingham, we were kind of a big deal in the kind of the southeast. And she said, you got a lot of newspaper notices. Yes. She said, had a lot of kind of accolades here. And said, yes. She said, good. Take all those and either burn them or put them in a scrapbook because you start all over and it's a 10-year town. She told me it's a 10-year town. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I already got a cut. It was 10 years before I got the second one.
Oh, wow.
And so it just is, and there are people that come in. My friend Paul Jefferson, I mean, he was playing the Bluebird 20 minutes when after he got into town. The first cut that he got went to #1 for Aaron Tippin. That's as close as I get to loving you. He wrote it in a castle in France. There are people that immediately have a lot of things going on. 9 times out of 10, those are generally very attractive people and have a lot on the ball and are very charismatic. At the same time, another friend of mine, Jeffrey Steele, moved to town. Good-looking guy, had a #1 song coming into town. Then he went cold for 8 years.
Yeah.
And then after that, he hit everywhere, and he's one of the most successful writers. You can't really tell, but it takes. When I did the freshman, sophomore, junior thing, it seems to have this repeating thing. First 3 years, your freshman year, you're kind of just learning what not to do. The second 3 years, which are kind of your sophomore year, starting to know people, getting invited into higher and higher level gigs, getting a little bit better people. You start playing with better people. By the time you got into that junior year, which is the next 3 years, you kind of got some relationships, and this happened. A lot of those people you first moved to town with, you know this yourself. A lot of those people you first moved to town with a year or so ahead of that you're kind of interacting with a little bit, they move on into their positions of power. So the next thing you know is one of those guys or girls that you knew 7 years ago suddenly is the vice president of of a publishing company or a record company, and so suddenly it's like, hey, why don't you come play some stuff for you? So it's not just you getting into things; it's your friends and your connections getting into things and sticking around. Yeah. Most people are gone within a year to a year and a half.
All right, so you mentor singer-songwriters. Tell us about how that works.
Okay. Frankie Ballard, as I was saying, is a perfect example. He was a really good blues guitar player, 24 years old. He's up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, Kalamazoo, Michigan. He would come in, and the way my whole thing does, I call it a songwriter tour. And it's a tour through the past, the present, the future. Come in, they bring their songs, and we'll go through things. Some want performance critiques. Frankie was used to playing with a band. Here, you're playing with just an acoustic guitar, and so I was giving him some tips on how to best communicate. You don't have drums, you don't have all that. Suddenly, it's just you. And then we would write stuff, and I would say, what type of song do you want? He was very influenced by the Allman Brothers and Charlie Daniels, and also Johnny Cash, and he loved all that. And so he wanted our real bluesy country blues song. And I said, okay, great. What do you want it to be about? And he said, kind of got a thing for women's feet, but I don't want to sound like a pervert. So we wrote the song, Ain't Nothing as Sexy as a Woman in Bare Feet, and so I've been playing since the 70s, and I can write in a lot of different styles, and I kind of will adapt to what they're doing and then show them how to take that kind of the next step. And then I try to introduce them to people that I know. And it's just like, it's, what sports coaches are, a golf coach, a baseball coach, football, whatever, that take those high school or even those college prospects and work on strength and conditioning and all the movement, all the things. That's what I do with songwriters. It's the same kind of thing.
All right. You mentioned Charlie Daniels and the Allman Brothers. They recorded downstairs from where I'm at right now.
Okay. Absolutely. You're in Macon, right?
I'm in Macon at Capricorn.
All right. Yeah.
So how do people get in touch with you?
You go to www.musicchoosesyou.com. And I have a song, Tables and Chairs, which you don't choose music, music chooses you. But if you go to Music Chooses You, it'll take you to all my websites. It'll take you to everything.
We didn't cover maybe half the stuff I wanted to cover, so we may do this again. So,
well, that'd be great. I love it. And I love the comp thing. We're having a really good time. I brought in some new people this last one, and it's a great idea. It's a really good idea.
We'll talk more about that too. But
okay.
Thanks again, Mark.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it very much.